Shalom Aleichem, Mishpachim. We are in the third or second Aliyah in Mikeitz, the Parsha Mikeitz, in the book of Genesis, Bereshis. All right. I believe it is verse 15 through 38, chapter 41. Judaica place. I recommend this Judaica store. They're an online store. They have an online store. They also have a brick and mortar, but it's nowhere near me, so I shop here quite often. All right, verse 15. This is chapter 41. Torah up here on the top, Rashi on the bottom. All right, this is from my art scroll Rashi Chumash. Verse 15. And Paro said to Yosef, I dreamt a dream, but there is no one who could interpret it. Now I heard it said of you that you hear a dream to interpret it. Verse 15, Rashi. You hear a dream to interpret it. This means you listen to and understand a dream to interpret it. You hear is an expression of comprehension, and listening, like in, literally, Joseph heard, and in literally, whose language you will not hear. And tendresse in Old French. This is very difficult to read, the commentary, because a lot of it's in Hebrew, and I don't read a lick of it. I don't read a lick of Hebrew, so bear with me. I'm trying. Joseph answered Paro, saying, that is beyond me. God will respond to Pharaoh's welfare. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, in my dream, behold, I was standing upon the bank of the canal. Verse 16, Rashi, that is beyond me. The wisdom to interpret dreams is not mine. Rather, God will respond. That is, he will put a response in my mouth for Pharaoh's welfare. Verse 18, Torah. And behold, out of the canal there emerged 7 cows of robust flesh and beautiful form, and they were grazing in the swamp. Then behold, 7 other cows emerged after them, haggard and of very poor form and of emaciated flesh. I have never seen anything like them in all the land of Egypt for poorness. Verse 20, and the emaciated and poor cows ate up the first 7 healthy cows. Verse 19, Rashi, scrawny, this means haggard, like in, why are you so haggard? Which is said in the passage which speaks about Amnon. And of emaciated flesh, any instance of the word in Scripture means lacking meat. Of this word at the end here, the Hebrew word, means lacking meat. Blesses in Old French. Verse 22, Torah. Verse 21. I'll start from 20. And the emaciated and poor cows ate up the first 7 healthy cows. They came inside them, but it was not apparent that they had come inside them, for their appearance remained as poor as at first. Then I awoke. And I said in my dream, behold, 7 ears of grain were sprouting on one stalk, full and good. Up to 22, or I should say 23. 23, Torah. And behold, 7 ears of grain withered, thin and scorched by the east wind there, growing after them. Verse 23, Rashi, withered in the Aramaic language means rock. The Hebrew word here thus means, see now, they are like wood, without moisture and hard as rock. Targum Onkelos renders as the term, this is all Hebrew, the term means there is nothing in them, left of them, but the husk, for they have been emptied of the kernel. Verse 24, Torah. Then the thin ears of grain swallowed up the 7 good ears. I said this to the necromancers, but there was no one who could explain it to me. Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh, it is but one. What God is doing, he has told to Pharaoh. The 7 good cows, they are 7 years, and the 7 good ears, they are 7 years. It is one dream. Now, the 7 emaciated and poor cows who emerged after them, they are 7 years, and the 7 emaciated ears scorched by the east wind means that there shall be 7 years of famine. Verse 26. Rashi, 7 years and 7 years, all of them, both the 7 years represented by the good cows and the 7 years represented by the good ears, are nothing but the same as 7 years, but the same 7 years. And as for the dream being repeated a second time, this was done because the matter is ready to be fulfilled, as Joseph explained to Pharaoh in the end. As for the repetition of the dream, etc. About the 7 good ears it says, he has told to Pharaoh, because it was to be fulfilled close in time to Joseph's statement to Pharaoh. But about the 7 years of famine it says, he has shown to Pharaoh, because the matter was remote and distant. The term showing applies to it. All right. Verse 28, this is the matter that I have spoken to Pharaoh. What God is doing, he has shown to Pharaoh. Behold, 7 years are coming, a great abundance throughout all the land of Egypt. Then 7 years of famine will arise after them, and all the abundance in the land of Egypt will be forgotten. The famine will ravage the land, and the abundance will not be known in the land in the face of that subsequent famine, for it will be terribly severe. Verse 30. Rashi, and all the abundance in the land of Egypt will be forgotten. This is the interpretation of the swallowing. Verse 31, Rashi, and the abundance will not be known. This is the interpretation of, but it was not apparent that they had come inside them. Verse 32, Torah, as for the repetition of the dream to Pharaoh, 2 times, it is because the matter stands ready before God, and God is hastening to do it. Now let Pharaoh seek out a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed and let him appoint overseers on the land, and he shall prepare the land of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. Verse 31. Verse 32, Rashi. This means ready here. 34. Torah, let Pharaoh proceed and let him appoint overseers on the land, and he shall prepare the land of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. Verse 34. Rashi, this is to be understood as Targum Onkelos renders it. And he shall prepare. Similarly, and the children of Israel were armed. Verse 35. Torah, and let them gather all the food of those approaching good years. Let them amass grain under Pharaoh's custody for food in the cities and safeguard it. The food will be reserved for the land against the 7 years of famine, which will come to pass in the land of Egypt, so that the land will not perish in the famine. Verse 35. Rashi, all the food. The word here is a noun. Therefore, its accent is on the aleph, and it is vowelized with a patach katan. But the word here, which is a verb, for example, for anyone who eats forbidden fat, its accent is on the last syllable, on the letter base, and it is vowelized with a kamatz katan. Under Pharaoh's custody, literally hand, in his domain, and in his storehouses. Verse 36. Torah, the food will be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine, which will come to pass in the land of Egypt, so that the land will not perish in the famine. Verse 37, Torah, the matter appeared good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, could we find like this a man in whom is the Spirit of God? Verse 36. Rashi, the food that has been amassed will be, like any other article given for safekeeping, which is stored away for the country's preservation. This is to be understood as Targum Onkelos renders it. Can we find one like him if we would go and look for him? Could we find one like him? The word here is an expression of astonishment. It introduces a question, and so, too, does any letter hey, which serves as a prefix at the beginning of a word and is vowelized with a chataf patach, introduce a question. All right. I'm sorry that was difficult for me. I hope it was very readable. Very understandable. Let me know. I understood what I was reading, but did you guys? That's the question. And when I go back and review it over again, I'll probably understand more. So, let me make a video on the daily wisdom on the Parshiot of what I just read. I just read the second Aliyah of the Mikeitz, of the Parsha Mikeitz, second reading in Genesis chapter 41, verses 15 through 38. Pharaoh related his dreams to Joseph. The title of this wisdom on the Parshiot is called Progression versus Regression. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream, but no one can interpret it. No one can interpret it. And I have heard about you that you can understand a dream and interpret it. Joseph's and Pharaoh's dreams constitute a study in contrasts. Joseph dreamed about inheriting the leadership of Jacob's family so he could further God's purpose to sanctify the world by transforming it into his true home. Pharaoh, in contrast, dreamed about the material welfare of the pagan empire of Egypt. Furthermore, Joseph dreamed first about earthly sheaves and then about the heavenly hosts, a progression from the earthly to the heavenly. Pharaoh dreamed first about cows and then about sheaves, a regression from a higher form of life to a lower one. The ascent of holiness versus the descent of unholiness expressed in Joseph and Pharaoh's dreams reflected the truth that holiness possesses intrinsic existence. It exists for its own sake and therefore is permanent, whereas unholiness is a temporary phenomenon existing only to challenge holiness. Although it may sometimes seem to us that unholiness has the upper hand, we must realize that, on the contrary, this is only in order to pave the way for a subsequent increase of holiness in the world. And that is the daily wisdom on the Parshiot and the reading on the Parshiot. All right, of Mikeitz. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. Laila Tov.